First of all, I always thought that breast cancer was a white woman's disease. I didn't know that black women got breast cancer, and that was mainly because all the promotions featured white women. So I just thought, oh, black women don't get this. And then, lo and behold, I was diagnosed with stage 3 advanced breast cancer. I thought after that I finished with the IV and the chemo that I was going to go home. I didn't know I had to take additional over-the-counter, not over-the-counter, but prescription drugs. And I went, and it was quite expensive. And I thought to myself, okay, what do poor people do? How do women that look like me, that is less fortunate than I am, how do they make it? How do they find the money to pay for this prescription, take care of their families, cover all their finances? That must be so difficult for them. And then I was at home one morning feeling, terrible after chemotherapy treatment. Couldn't get off the bed. It was terrible. And I thought to myself, okay, I don't want any other woman that looks like me to have to go through this alone. So when I get better, I'm going to do something about this. That started the journey of me and the Olive Branch of Hope.
Welcome, welcome, welcome to our visionary women, our sisters who are out there building empires and tearing down kingdoms and starting from scratch and, working your way through to deliver your dream and your vision and your calling to this world. I am so happy to be here with my new friend, Miss Carlene. Hey, Miss Carlene.
Hi, Nadia. Thank you so much for having me.
And we are going to be getting into some really good, yummy, juicy conversation here, as we always do on 30 Days of HERstory. But before that, first of all, I want to extend a welcome to you on behalf of our 2023 nonprofit partner, the Olive Branch of Hope. And we'll be sharing so much more with you about the organization. And before we jump into conversation, we are just going to acknowledge where we are and how we came to be. And so the Olive Branch of Hope, the office is situated on Indigenous land. This is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Confederacy, the Wendat, and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. The Olive Branch of Hope gratefully acknowledges these Indigenous nations for their guardianship of this land. The Olive Branch of Hope also recognizes stolen people from across the world who have inhabited this land by force. Slavery prior to and including the transatlantic slave trade, continuing through modern day human trafficking, have brought Indigenous peoples from across the globe to care for this land. We acknowledge the truth of our Canadian history and commit ourselves to reconciliation with knowledge and careful intention. I invite you to take a moment of silence. Feel free to use this as a moment of prayer, a moment of memory, a moment to set intention before we engage in conversation here tonight. And for those of you who are listening live or on the replay, just hold this as a moment of sacred space for us to understand where we are and how we came to be here. Thank you for joining me in this moment of silence. Social media is not a place where we tend to get silent, right? We try to be loud and get the most attention, but here we do the things that matter, and we do them with authenticity, and we do them truthfully. So silence it is when it needs to be, right? Yes, please. So, my dear Carlene, I have learned quite a bit about you, and I am fascinated by what I have learned. So, please tell the visionary ladies all about the intelligence and imagination and creativity behind that gorgeous smile.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, thank you so much again, Nadia, for inviting me to be here. It's an absolute pleasure. And this evening, I want to introduce myself as a registered physiotherapist, entrepreneur with Pro PT Rehab. And physiotherapy is actually my second career. I became a physiotherapist after having children. And so I started out as an entrepreneur because I grew up with my mom being an entrepreneur, and I started the business. And then later on in life, I needed a skill that was transferable. And I was introduced to physiotherapy and investigated about the profession and decided to go back to school. So went back to school. I'm from Jamaica. You may hear and recognize the accent. So I went to school in Jamaica at the School of Physiotherapy at Mona Rehabilitation. Many persons are not aware that there is a School of Physiotherapy there. Since I went to school, which was not too long ago, but long enough, they have since joined up with they're now aligned with the University of the West Indies. But when I went back in 1997, it was a standalone school. And I did my physiotherapy there, completed that journey, and went on to work in the hospitals for a year. Back then, the fee was quite subsidized, so we had to give the government a year of internship. So that I did. And then after that, I needed to do something that was a little bit more lucrative. So I got into pharmaceutical sales. I did that for 7 years before immigrating to Canada. So there goes my transferable skills. So I came to Canada, and of course, coming here, we have to recertify. And luckily, coming from the British system, I was able to pretty much have my credentials be certified and assessed, and I was able to do the entry-level exam that all physiotherapists here in Canada take. So that between credentialing and getting the exams out of the way, two sitting, there's a written and a practical component. It took me about 3 years to get that done. So once I got that done, I got into a clinic. I started working in clinic. And while there in clinic, I was always looking for opportunities. What else can I learn? Because any physiotherapy program you do, it's just about getting you the basic information. But anything else above and beyond, these are additional skills that you have to be certified in. So I was always looking at what else can I do. So while in clinic, I did acupuncture because people needed something else, another modality for pain management. And then I also got involved at that time. Not many people were talking about pelvic health. So I got trained in pelvic health and did the clinic until an opportunity came up in community physio. Of course, I needed to, I was still fairly new here, but this is an opportunity to learn the geography while earning, right? So I got out there and I became a community physio. Of course, that was important for me too, coming from pharmaceutical sales background. It did give me that level of flexibility also. And I think too, my personality is such that I do not like to be in the same place all the time. So this gave me the opportunity to get out there and do my stuff, meet people, which I love to do, meet new people, get into new places, see new faces. So that got me into community physio. And then from there, I got into community care. While in community physio, I met a lady. I usually work with most of the clients in the community. They are seniors. So I did assessment for mobility aids, and I met a fitter who said, "You're an ADP authorizer. You need to do lymphedema." I said, "Lymphedema?" Because I didn't know anything about lymphedema. So she got me all set up, and I became an ADP authorizer for lymphedema. Now I'm signing these documents, but each time I meet a patient with lymphedema, they now have a script for manual lymphatic drainage, and they say, "Where do I go?" And suddenly the bell went off in my head. Not very many people around do this service, right? So the same lady who I met, the fitter, she said, "Yeah, you should go do the course." So it took me a while to figure out how to get the course done, because I had to be away from work for a few days. Just at the time when I thought I was going to do the course, I got a new job and I couldn't do the course at that time. So I was delayed for about 2 years, and but I finally got it done. And so now a few years ago, I got trained in lymphedema management, complete decongestive therapy. So yes, thank you. So I came back, I have that skill set, and I've been working part-time doing seeing my patients for both physiotherapy, regular physiotherapy, and manual lymphatic drainage. And last year, I had a 9 to 5 job in healthcare, and I saw how people with lymphedema were being managed, and I saw that there was such a gap in the management of these clients, and I decided that, okay, I'm gonna set out and step out and really get going on, making people aware as to what this disease is and how it can be managed, and the resources that are available to manage the condition.
Well, we are very thankful that you persevered through all of that and made it here. And I must say, like, it's one thing to have met a lymphedema specialist, but there's a little special tingle you get when the person looks and sounds like and things are familiar, and like it just warms you a little bit, right? And so that's what representation is all about. Everyone should be able to walk into a medical health center and find someone who looks and sounds like them, warms the water a bit, and eases them into their care. So I'm really happy that we get a chance to showcase all of what you are and have to offer to everyone here. And really, really thankful that, you saw that gap, because it feels as though people who are even in healthcare don't see the gap. And for those of us who are dealing with lymphedema every day, the gap is very obvious, right?
Yes. Yes.
And your friend here is cheering you on.
Yes, I see that. Thanks. Yes, it's very interesting, because once I decided to embark on, talking about lymphedema more, building that awareness, I have spoken to physicians and who have said to me, I'm a physician, and in school they talk about the lymphatic system, but they just glossed over it, and I didn't even know that there was something for lymphedema. And so often I see patients who say to me that the doctor told them that there was no help that they could get. They just have to live with it. And it warms my heart each time I see a patient and I'm able to provide some support to them, and they can walk away calling me all kinds of names. You're a lifesaver, you're an angel, so many things. And just a few weeks ago, I was scrolling through and I came upon the olive branch of hope. And I said, I need to call these people up. And I called, and I was amazed that someone actually answered the phone, because nobody answers phone anymore, right? And this being a charitable organization, I wasn't expecting anyone to answer the phone. So when I answered the phone and I introduced myself, and the lady who answered the phone, she said, "Oh my goodness, someone from our community, a registered physiotherapist." And she was over the moon, right? And
I just want to take a minute to big up Melanie in the office, holding down the fort and really representing. Thanks, Melanie.
yes, that was Melanie for sure. Yes. And so for me, and right there and then, I guess I got connected with them because they had a function that was going to be held that Saturday. And right away, I called another colleague who is one of us, and said, "I am onto this program. Would you like to go?" And she said, "Oh, yes," right? And so we showed up. We didn't do much. We didn't do any. At the end, we didn't go around and, exchange cards or anything like that. But we were there and just listening in on the presentation and hearing the voices of the people in the audience. I recognized that, wow, there is a place for me here, because I don't know that we have, lymphedema on it by itself doesn't have much representation in terms of practitioners, versus even so having people from our community. And so it is an absolute honor for me to be sitting here and to be in this position, to be able to assist my sisters who are predisposed to lymphedema or already have been diagnosed with a condition.
Absolutely. And I mean, we talk about needing representation, and we don't always look at all the various ways that we need to be represented, right? And so for you, you're representing, intelligent people who ask questions. And sometimes in healthcare, the perspective is, I don't want to overwhelm you with information, so I'm not going to tell you much. So we have to ask questions, right? You're representing the women, you're representing people of Caribbean descent, birth, heritage, ancestry, African birth, heritage, and ancestry. You're representing newcomers, people who had to stop life, start life over, figure life out again, turn life inside out and upside down, and still come out on top magically. I think we're magicians, all of us as newcomers, right?
Yes,
sure. And really just to be able to go all the way through it. The perspective that you also offer your clients is tremendous. And for you to be there in those rooms advocating on our behalf with physicians and other medical professionals who don't understand, right? Who don't see it. or could be dismissive sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes there is well, we saved your life, so you should just be grateful for that. And we're like, we're super grateful that you saved our lives, but the quality of our life is still in need of consideration, right? And so, just first of all, on behalf of everyone who's been searching for answers and trying to figure out what is happening to my body, why is this part of my body feeling strange, feeling heavy, feeling tight, causing me so much pain, why am I having all these challenges? Thank you on all of our behalf, first of all. Now, you talked about physical therapy being your second career. You talked about making some decisions and going back and pursuing more education, changing countries, having a family, being a mom. You talked about all these different parts of yourself. In all of this, did you feel like if you had a singular vision, or do you feel like it changed or it evolved, or do you feel like you had one or didn't have one and then developed it? Tell me what place vision had for you in all of that transition.
I guess the vision continues to evolve, right? Because as I said, I started out as an entrepreneur. I did see myself as one day living someplace else. So that pushed me to get a career that was transferable, a skill that was transferable. Here's it. I came to Canada, and uh, I could have gotten a job in in a hospital, quite cushy. And I say cushy because physiotherapists, I find physiotherapists by profession, we tend to be very passive. We sit in the back and allow things to happen. When I was introduced to physiotherapy, I was told, yeah, it's a very clean profession. It's the cleanest healthcare profession you will have. Uh, the the physiotherapists do not work on Fridays. So, and if they do work on Fridays, they work half day and they make good money. Of course, that was telling me everything I wanted to hear. Well, might I tell you, I was out for a very rude awakening, right? And I shouldn't say it that way because that's not my personality. So I didn't fit into that box. So once I got my physiotherapy license, I realized that by then I was divorced, so I was a single mom. I I realized that what I was being paid to be a physiotherapist in Jamaica, I couldn't feed myself and my kids with that. So, hence, I got involved in pharmaceutical sales. So, the pharmaceutical sales came from my sales background, being an entrepreneur previously, and then now I have some medical background, right? So, I got into pharmaceutical sales. That got me. Then I came to Canada. Once I came to Canada, uh, I have someone who taught me at physio school who was here, right, a year ahead of me, and she became my mentor. She said, "Girl, get back into your profession," and that I did. So vision, it keeps evolving. But what I do know though is that I keep going back to my root, right? So I go back to where I started out. So here is it. I'm embarking again on my entrepreneurial journey. So I came to Canada, learned the lay of the land, went through, went where I was supposed to be, know a whole lot more than I did when I came here day one, or even working in a clinic, or, I made sure I got myself into spaces and places where I know what's going on in the background. And so I think I'm now equipped to take things to where I ideally want it to be.
Yeah. I love how all of those pieces kind of folded onto themselves. So here you are now with your entrepreneurship and your medical background and living abroad, and all the pieces, right? And I really want to highlight for our visionary women, this idea of the evolution of our vision and how it connects to the evolution of our understanding of ourselves, right?
Yes. Yep.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's interesting too. A friend of mine, I remember back in December, we have been working with other friends in terms of setting up our visionary board or vision board, right? And so we've been working, I am also a certified health and wellness coach. So, coaching, my niche is really to coach people towards taking control of their health. And, your health is your wealth. And that's where my mission or my vision is to help, especially us women who find it so easy to take care of everybody else, and we're left on the back burner to take care of ourselves, right? And so we were working together on vision board, right? And so each time we meet a group of persons to work on the vision board exercise, you would have one set who said, I've never heard of this, I've never done this. And then you have another set, I did it, and I everything that I did came to pass. So it's good to have vision, right? People talk about setting goals, but are you going to set a goal that you don't have a vision for, right?
Exactly.
So you need to have a vision. Exactly, I have something in my mind that I'd love to, this is what I want. I'd love to have this. And then you set your goals and strive towards them.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, you talked about lots of different transitions. Changing country is a major transition. Becoming a parent is a major transition. Changing careers, marriage, and divorce are two big transitions in life. Um, in any of these spaces, these moments, did you ever experience the diminishing of your own voice?
The diminishing of my own voice would probably be in the transition. Coming to Canada was quite a culture shock
Mhm.
uh, for me, right? Uh, but I'm of the mindset that once I set my mind to something, I, you know, uh, it's set. I am going for it at all costs. So that was it probably was a setback a little bit, but it wasn't nobody died here or nobody's gonna die. It's one of those situations. We're gonna stick it out and we're gonna move forward. I My last job though, my 9 to 5 job, I was in a space where I think I could have made a difference, uh, even where lymphedema is concerned. And I would say, what are we doing for these patients? What can we do for these patients? And mm, mm, there was silence pretty much. There was nothing to be done, and that is why I too embarked on this journey, because I know that there is so much more that can be done. And yeah, so in terms of diminishing voice, that's where I would say that, you know uh, here's it, you have someone on your team who has this background, has this skill set. It's not something that you pick up it's not dime a dozen, right? And here's it, you have this, Why don't you look at it? But I've heard so many success stories about people who have written, gone out and they've done marketing plans for companies. I know back in Jamaica, there were two chicken factories, the two known chicken companies, I think CB and Best Dress. And I think the one that was there first was CB. I'm not sure. One was there before the other. And the other one came about as a result of someone who was working at, maybe it was CB, did a marketing plan and brought it in, and it was just thrown out through the door. That person picked it up and went and started their own business. And so it's for us. And as I say, as a physio, going back to something I said about physios being cushy, we're always, if you look historically in most organizations, you may have an occupational therapist who is the lead, but hardly ever a physiotherapist. And I think it has something to do with our training or how we've been introduced to the profession. But I was never ever that physio. I was always doing something different. When I went into pharmaceutical sales, I was probably one of two physios in the whole pharmaceutical trade. The job I had, the last job I had in the entire organization, I was probably one of two physio in the organization. So I always find myself in places where not very many physios are. And even with lymphedema now, you don't have a whole lot of physios. Most of the people who are working as lymphedema therapists, they are massage therapists and not physios. So I always try to find myself somewhere different.
Yes. And you know what? That sense of needing to advocate, is so strong and very necessary as a patient in the healthcare system. Having to advocate on our own behalf is really critical. And so, we hear women talk about this experience of voicelessness in their homes, in their relationships, and, in work and all these different places, and how that experience of voicelessness invigorates them, right? How it gives them the impetus to use their voice,
Yes.
To speak on their behalf, and as you're doing, to speak on the behalf of others. Absolutely. Yeah. Now, with this, you're telling your story so beautifully, and I'm hoping that there are lots of people out there who are taking some inspiration from this. Young people who are trying to decide on a career path, somebody who's trying to decide on a second career, even if it's not physiotherapy, at least just the process that you went through of thinking about it. And like you said, you made a decision, you committed to that decision, you learned everything you needed to learn, you positioned yourself, and now you're differentiating yourself as well within that field, which is, if you guys are not taking notes, please take notes of these steps, okay? And with all of this, we're hearing your story, and I'm sure that other people from the outside looking in might have a different version of your story.
Right.
Why do you think it's important that you're the one who crafts the version of your own story that the world should hear?
Well, if you don't craft your path, you're going to allow someone to do it for you. And what do you want to do? Go along the path that you've prepared, or go along the path that someone else has prepared for you? That's what it is for me. So it's very important. And I'm not a control freak by any means, but it is important that you know what you want to do and you go for it. The thing about it is, if you don't do it, someone is going to do it for you. And I remember sitting at my desk one day, and there was something, a voice said to me, along the same path that if you, for as long as you work for someone, they decide how much they will pay you. For as long as you're employed to someone, they dictate what they want you to do. And how often have you been employed to someone and you're asked to do something that was totally against your belief, what you stand for? And so it is very important to know who you are, what you're about, and where you want to go. And once you're able to do that, and you have, you create that mindset. And by no means I'll ever sit here and tell anyone that that fear doesn't creep in, right? I heard you talk about yourself or the young lady who was with you last night. I think it's Jai.
Miss Jade, yes.
Jade, yes. I heard her talking about, having that critter brain telling you that, oh, you can't do it. You can, of course, I get that. But then you have to have that strength and that willpower and, belief in yourself and, in your higher being, whether whomever you call, whether you say God, I say God, and, trust in what you believe in, and believe that you can do the things. For as long as you have the strength, you can get it done.
Yeah, that is, I want our visionary women and our burgeoning visionary women to really hear that, because we live in societies where, as you said before, we take care of everybody else and then we figure out what little pieces we can squeeze in for ourselves. And then we feel guilty when we do, right? Yeah. And the narrative that we are speaking even about ourselves sometimes is coming from, what we're told.
Yes.
And so, the connection between first identifying our voices, giving our voices permission, and then amplifying our voices, and then using the power of that voice to determine the version of our story, and not just in hindsight, not just to say, oh, well, this is how it happened in my perspective, but to actually make some decisions, like you're saying, crafting my path, right? Yes. If I don't make decisions about what my story will be, someone else is going to make decisions.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so powerful. Now, when we do all of this, you've experienced these transitions. You've overcome so much. You're sitting here so graceful, with all of this history behind you and this knowledge, and, you've broken down walls and barriers and all this stuff, what imagery comes to your mind when you hear the word victory?
Yeah, victory. I'm not sure if there is an imagery, because to me it's a transition from one moment to the next. It is, where am I now, right? I know that a prayer I have every day is, Lord, make me a blessing to someone today. And to me, if I've blessed someone, and it comes, it's not going out of your way to do anything fancy, but, just be in a position, finding myself in a position where I can be a blessing to someone. That in and of itself gives me peace. And if I'm at peace, I think I have victory. And as I say, it's transitional. It's where I am from one moment to the next. When a client says to me, "You've changed my life." I had a client this week. I saw a client earlier this week. I remember I was traveling in December. She called me the day before and said she needed therapy. And based on my day, I was able to see her later that evening before I left the following day. And when I was leaving, she came down. Her family, because I'm mobile, so I go into people's home. Her family was huddled on the sofa, and she said, "Everyone, meet Carlene. She's an angel." And I said, "Oh my God, what did I do?" And she called me earlier this week. I went in and I did therapy for her. And when I went in, her husband, "Jack, I want you to meet Carlene. Oh, she saved my life." And I'm saying, did I do that? So, just getting that gratitude from my patients, and, just knowing that I'm in that position where I can be a blessing to someone, that gives me, that makes me feel good. It really makes me feel good. And even meeting with you, Nadia, being here, being aware that I can be in a place where I can be of assistance to my sisters, that in and of itself tells me that, you know what, um, I am getting to where I want to be, touching lives, and that's my goal, to touch lives in a positive way.
Yeah, absolutely. And as our dear friend June is saying here, you just never know the effect you have on people, but by staying true to yourself, you talk about that peace, that inner peace,
Yes.
And how that drives the ability to give freely from that place of peace, that fullness. That's what people are feeling, on top of your professionalism and all the work you're doing for them and helping their physical bodies. Then there's also that, as you give, they're getting a little bit of that sense of peace that you carry. And that is so victorious, to come out on the other side of all of it, and to stand knowing that your purpose is to be able to give, and to give freely, and to cause that impact and that chain reaction, because mom set the tone in the house, right? So mom is in pain, she's saying you saved her life, but her whole family is going like, thank you, Miss Carlene, thank you.
Right? That's exactly what was going on. You never know what you did. Thank you so much for coming. And I'm saying, oh my goodness, so
absolutely. And now our friend Paul highlighted earlier for us that it is Women's HERstory Month, as we like to call it here at HERstory. And you educated me, Carlene, because here we are, we're doing this amazing, partnership with the Olive Branch of Hope. And we're so grateful to be working with that organization throughout this year. And we're talking about lymphedema. And, at 2114, we make sure that everything we do is setting an example to other entrepreneurs as to how we can bring our passion and our business together to do good in this world. And so, we're focusing on buying these medical devices. This is something that impacts my life directly. So I can speak to it from a place of really understanding and a real passion to, help other women. And with all of this, I did not know that March is also Lymphedema Awareness Month.
Yes. And and it's good. It's good that it's Lymphedema Awareness Month, and it gives me this opportunity to talk a little bit about lymphedema. So I heard you talking last night about your own experience with lymphedema, and I just want to take this opportunity to let my sisters know, and even brothers, if you're out there with lymphedema, the awareness that I want to create is that once you have had cancer and did surgery, removal of lymph nodes, you are predisposed to lymphedema. So if you've done surgery, and it's even further compounded if you've done radiation, right, you are predisposed. What people are not being told is that once you've done the surgery or radiation, you my vision is that people will be fitted in a sleeve once you've done it, because
Automatically.
you're automatically fitted in a sleeve. Nobody's doing that. Nobody's telling anybody that. You're not even being told that you should be looking out for lymphedema. Another thing that I thought about is that in the same way that patients who are going in for knee surgery, for example, they see the physiotherapist to do some pre-op rehab. I think if you're going in for surgery, you should have pre-op rehab for whether it be breast cancer, ovarian, whatever. You should have pre-op. And what that pre-op rehab would do is to educate you about what to look for in terms of possible lymphedema, because every one of my patients I see, they said, I heard about lymphedema, but it was in the literature that they gave to me. And you know what is true? The people who are giving you the literature, they don't know about lymphedema anyway.
Nope.
So, we can't fault them.
Yeah.
They don't know anything about lymphedema. But if you're referred to a lymphedema specialist, or lymphedema therapist, or cancer rehab therapist, then that person would be able to, they need to use those visits to provide that education. We need to
Absolutely.
be more proactive versus being reactive.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Listen, I hope y'all are hearing, because when we tell you that we are going full steam ahead to make sure that some of these provisions are made, you're going to sign the petition, or, write to your MP or whatever you need to do to make these changes, because you are so right. Carlene, I learned about lymphedema doing what they told me not to do when I was Googling. They tell you not to go on Google, right? But if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have read this one article about this lady who had lymphedema. And, they didn't tell me to be careful of repetitive actions. So what am I doing? I thought all this time I'm spending in these waiting rooms, waiting on doctors, I could use this time wisely and learn something. So here I am on Duolingo, brushing up my Italian, using my thumb all the time, right? Going and trying to work out when I can and lifting weights, not aware of all of this repetitive motion, right? Impacting on my body, right? Not aware that I shouldn't sleep on my right side, which is the side I love to sleep on, right? Like, none of these things were discussed. And when I started asking questions to the people that I expected to at least direct me, at the very least, point me in a direction.
Yes.
And to be told, oh, there's nothing.
Yes, or nothing that can be done. There's new research though to show that exercise can be very, very effective.
The right kind, because I had to go get an exercise program, and that's when I found out I was doing all the wrong exercises.
and that is why you need to be referred to a cancer rehab therapist, or someone who's knowledgeable about lymphedema and what to be done. So another thing is, I know that we spoke about garments, where the Olive Branch of Hope is trying to raise funds for garments. The Lymphedema Association of Ontario, they do have garments there sitting in a box. I was on one of their webinars last week, and I heard them talking about having garments there. So please be aware of that. Another thing is I heard you talking, Nadia, about the cost of the garments. So just wanted to make it known that the government do pay for garments once you have that diagnosis by a specialist. The government will pay for 75% of the cost for the garment, and the other 25% can be paid for through maybe one of the charitable organization if there's someone who definitely can't come up with that 25%.
Yeah.
I know also too that people who are on ODSP will pay that 25%. So just to know, also I'm an ADP authorizer. So if any of my sisters need to have their forms authorized, I am an authorizer. So
find Miss Carlene.
Yeah,
No?
yes, so.
Yeah. And so, even with our push to raise funds for these devices, they are, as we talked about yesterday, we have all these provisions that are made, right?
Yes.
And then there are people who are locked out of these provisions. You and I both know what it is like to be new here. And, sometimes there are a lot of people who come and things are not exactly, all the duckies aren't lined up in a perfect little row, and you may find yourself locked out of these systems for years at a time, right? And so if you don't have access, one of the doctors who worked very closely with us at the Olive Branch of Hope, Dr. Cavelli, she says, it might be free, it might be accessible, but it's not equitable here in Canada, and so equity is us looking for those who are not at the table, those who are not, receiving these provisions. So if you can tap into it, please, we will make sure that this resource is available so that more people can, one, learn about lymphedema and to go get help. But if you can't find that 25%, right? If life is hard, right? Y'all see these gas prices and y'all avoiding fresh vegetables and buying canned or frozen. We know what's going on up there, right? So, so whatever your situation is, we are trying to make sure, just like you saw the gap, Carlene, that we fill the gap, because it's one thing you finally have learned about lymphedema. You finally understand that you need to get fitted. You finally find the help to go and do all of that. You get your paper signed and you do all of these things. And then just about the time that the government reimburses you, you need to get fitted again.
Oh, that's something I needed to talk about. There are fitters that will give you the garment before it's paid for by the government. So if there's anyone who's having problem getting their garment, you don't have to wait until the fitter I work along with, I know that you'll get your garment before well, she doesn't take your money up front. That's what I should say. So the approval time has shortened since COVID, and everything is being done online. The approval time is shortened. And so working with someone who is moving through with the system and is willing to give you your garment. What takes the time is if you're getting a garment that is made for you. Yes, that's what takes the time, because it's sent off, custom made garment. It's sent off, and the turnaround is dependent on the manufacturer, right? So that's what takes the bulk of the time.
Now, for you as a professional, do you have a set time frame that you suggest people renew their garments to maintain compression?
Well, the government replaces them every 6 months.
Oh, it used to be 2 years.
No, every 6 months you get a new 2 sets, right? Every 6 months, and then every 2 years you have to renew your paperwork. So it's every 6 months.
Yeah. To June, so June is asking us a question: why wouldn't the Lymphedema Association of Ontario donate these garments, or at the very least let people know they can come in to fit to see if it's right for them? So I think like many other nonprofits, they're probably trying to get the word out that this is available. Do you know if they donate maybe the ones that are already there and then they help you pay for the ones that have to be customized? Is that what it is?
No, I think these garments, they would have gotten them from
The manufacturers?
the manufacturers.
Mhm.
I was in on the webinar, but I had to get off prematurely, and so I didn't hear the end of it, but I was very pleased to hear that they had garments. I think though you have to be referred by a therapist though. I don't think you could, because for you to have, it's a medical device, so first you have to have a referral, and so you have to be seen by, you have to be referred to the Lymphedema Association by a therapist. That much I do know.
Okay.
So
yeah, but we can all go and look for the Lymphedema Association of Ontario.
Yes.
And read through their website. And June, it's a good question. So maybe let's ask, right? Let's start asking some questions and see what other information we can find out there and make that resource available to our community as much as possible.
Right. But one of the things we could do too, as we could contact the different garment suppliers ourselves, because that's one of the things they do. They give back, right? The challenge is why they probably won't just give it to the organization. They want to make sure that it's in a professional's hand, that it's not being dispensed inappropriately. So
absolutely. And as we tell people all the time, this is not the thing you get on Amazon. No, you don't get this at a sports store. No. That's not what this is. No. You need to go to a professional medical fitter, yes, and make sure that you are getting the right care. Yes. Right. So Jude is saying here, it seems like a waste when there are women buying from Amazon without even getting measured. Right. So they're buying the athletic ones, not even recognizing that it's not the same thing. Right?
Lack of education again, right?
Exactly.
Lack of education. So, yeah. And you're spending twice. So, and that is why it's important that, I tell people we have to get the word out to our community, have people come to these presentations so they know. Tell your sisters, your aunties, your cousins, tell everybody that, look, this is a real thing. You can get information here. This is information you can get for free, right? This is an opportunity for us to grow our awareness and our knowledge in our community. So
absolutely. And while you're doing that, while you're out and you're trying to learn more about lymphedema, make sure that you understand more and more about the work that we are doing here, why it's important. It is something that is spoken so little of. As Carlene has mentioned, there's so little education about it, both outside and within the medical profession. June is saying here, like, we not only have to advocate for cancer care, but now we have to advocate for the sleeves that match our skin tone. Absolutely. That's a thing, right? I went with I had a henna one last time, but the nude wasn't my nude, and so I stuck with black for the next go around. But it is so true, right? And again, going back to that conversation on representation and the the feeling of self in the moment, right? And so we're doing this work with the Olive Branch of Hope. We're raising awareness all year. That's what we're dedicating the year to, raising awareness about lymphedema. And we're raising funds to support Black women who are living with lymphedema. We want you guys to understand, it doesn't just pop up and go away. Living with lymphedema, we try to get as much help as we can. We get our drainage massages, and we reduce as much as we can the burden. But sometimes, because of this lack of education, people are being diagnosed when your limbs are like 2-3 times the size of what it should be, when things are much harder to treat.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you're there with infection. People just need to understand, once you start feeling any heaviness, any form of heaviness, it's lymphedema. Yeah.
Tackle it head on, right? My heaviness is right here, is where I feel mine the most, right?
It's lymphedema. So get treated right away.
Yeah. Ask questions, push for what you need.
Yes.
And while we're doing all of this, and we're raising awareness and making sure that we're becoming more and more knowledgeable about the types of questions we need to ask, more knowledgeable about the things that we need to push for, more knowledgeable in terms of like what Carlene said, to just pay attention to identify the gaps for ourselves and for others. And we're doing all of that. And we're also raising funds to be able to support, the women who are locked out of the offers that are available, are having challenges financially, coming out of, you're dealing with cancer treatment, you're dealing with family, you're dealing with work, you're dealing with yourself, you're dealing with everything is layered on top of it. And then you got a new thing to go and deal with as well. We're trying as much as we can to reduce all the things that our otherwise brilliantly visionary women, have to then focus on. So you can go now to www.heysisterherstory.ca. So that's heysisterherstory.ca. You can either purchase one of the items that we have for sale. So when you scroll down, you'll see the Olive Branch of Hope co-branded items that are there. Of everything that we do for 2023, we're giving donations to the Olive Branch of Hope. But with those items, we're giving a little bit extra special donation on top. And you can donate there directly as well. So if you donate, we'll give you a free gift. So you'll see there's some free downloadable gifts that you get every time you choose to donate. All right. So go ahead and make sure that you stand up and represent, show off your Olive Branch merch everywhere that you can, and let people know that we're here and that we're doing amazing work. And please make sure that you tell everyone else, that this is available. June has a question here before we sign off. If it was affordable, precursor to the rest of the question, how often should you get a lymphatic massage? So let's start with how often should you get a lymphatic massage, and then we'll deal with affordability afterwards.
Okay, so yeah, that's a loaded question. It depends on how congested your limb or your body part is. My training said daily. And that is,
so that's like the dry brushing.
No. That's the manual lymphatic,
like an actual
drainage.
massage. Like, okay.
Yeah, the manual lymphatic drainage. It's not kneading or anything.
Yeah.
Manual lymphatic drainage.
Yeah.
Right. So, and that's for people who are very congested and probably have wounds and stuff like that. Now, I've never seen a client because of cost restriction daily, but I've seen clients 3 times a week. If you really need to be decongested and you can't afford it, at least twice a week. That's the least I would recommend. But 2 to 3 times a week for people who are really congested. Someone who is not very congested, they could do once a week, especially but if you're going through a series of treatment, I say go through a series of treatment, get your arm down to where you can maintain it, or your leg, whatever part it is, get it down to where you can maintain it. You're taught how to do self-massage, and you do your exercises, and you get into your garment, which is easier to don than you putting on the bandaging. So
yeah. And so you do like the taping and all of those
So I do elastic taping too for those clients, especially breast or trunk, depending on where it's at. And I do limbs too. I do elastic taping. I do compression bandaging. And for people who have a lot of neurological problems, so they have a lot of increased sensation and they don't tolerate the compression bandaging. The garments, sometimes the sleeves are good. The ones with the Velcro are also good to help with the reduction.
Okay. Right.
But the key is getting, if you're congesting, getting reduced by getting your bandaging, getting the full complete decongestion therapy. You go through the whole gamut, the manual lymphatic drainage, the bandaging, and once you're done with a series of treatment, then you get fitted into a garment that is for maintenance. And if you're going to maintain, you want to maintain at a size that you have been reduced to. I quite often am signing ADP forms for people who are congested. And I'm saying this garment is only going to keep you where you are. You need to be decongested, and then you're fitted with a garment. And people say, but nobody ever told me that. So yeah, there's a lot of
we got to get this word out, right? Because
yes,
we really need, because then at that point, that person could make the payment, wait for the reimbursement, get the garment, but they aren't actually, improving their situation when that help is available there as well, right? And so we want to make sure we get the word out so that people understand that there's so much more help.
Yes, and if you're waiting on a garment that you're measured for and it's being customized, that garment, if you decide to do some manual lymphatic drainage, that garment has no use to you by the time it gets to you, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Because you're no longer at that size.
Yes. And June is reminding us, as Carlene mentioned before, you can get lymphedema not just in your limbs, you can get it in your body, any part of your body, and so we want to make sure that people are really clearly understanding what's happening. This is the information that we should have been given pre-surgery. We understand, this approach that the medical community takes, not to overwhelm us with information, but please tell us. Overwhelm me first and not afterwards, because it's still overwhelming, right? So let's just get it out of the way.
Yes, we need that pre-op. We need that pre-op visit.
Yes, absolutely. 100%. I am with you on that, Ms. Carlene. Carlene, thank you so very much for joining us, for being here with us, for shedding some light on some very important, parts of our lives that we're not even aware of. People would see someone else walking around with, something like this and make all sorts of assumptions, but we really want people to understand what it is. We want people to understand that there's so much beautiful life for us to experience after breast cancer treatment. And although there's all this beauty in life, just because you finish chemo and radiation and you had your surgeries doesn't mean it's all done. There's still more that has to be dealt with. We still need to be, handled a bit gently, right? People come and they, hit me on the shoulder. And I'm like, please don't, right? Or, don't squeeze, right? So please, making sure that people understand that we are here together for the Olive Branch of Hope, making sure that there is community long after we've dealt with, what people understand to be the treatment journey. We are here for the long haul. We are here for our sisters who've just been diagnosed or they think they might be diagnosed if you're going through diagnostics. You know, we're celebrating 10 years with our friend June, 20 plus years with our founders, Leela and Winsome, and there's so many women that have beat it. But, even the ones that, we may have lost, we love them and we carry them on and carry their legacy on and continue to advocate on our behalf and on the behalf of many, many others. So again, Carlene, thank you so very much for being here. Thank you to everyone who has tuned in on behalf of the board, the founders, the volunteers, and everyone who works with us at the Olive Branch of Hope. We so appreciate your time and your listening. Now go share the video because you heard some really serious nuggets being dropped there, all the way through. So go share and tell your friends. And join us tomorrow night because it's every night in March. We have another amazing lady. We're sharing the stage with interviewers. So you got lots of fantastic ladies to meet this month. Right back here, facebook.com/HERstory by 2114. Join us on YouTube. Or you can also join us on the Olive Branch of Hope's Facebook page as well. We'll be right here, bringing you lots of hope, lots of love, lots of education. My dear sisters, have a lovely day, a lovely night whenever you're watching, and go be amazing.
Thanks for having me, Nadia. Have a good evening.
Bye.
First of all, I always thought that breast cancer was a white woman's disease. I didn't know that Black women got breast cancer, and that was mainly because all the promotions featured white women. So I just thought, oh, Black women don't get this. And then lo and behold, I was diagnosed with stage 3 advanced breast cancer. I thought after that I finished with the IV and the chemo that I was going to go home. I didn't know I had to take additional prescription drugs. And I went, and it was quite expensive. And I thought to myself, okay, what do poor people do? How do women that look like me, that is less fortunate than I am, how do they make it? How do they find the money to pay for this prescription, take care of their families, cover all their finances? That must be so difficult for them. And then I was at home one morning feeling, terrible after chemotherapy treatment. Couldn't get off the bed. It was terrible. And I thought to myself, okay, I don't want any other woman that looks like me to have to go through this alone. So when I get better, I'm going to do something about this. That started the journey of me and the Olive Branch of Hope.